Believe it or not, some of the most important discoveries in human history weren't made in universities or billion-dollar labs. They were made by individuals working in their own backyards. Most didn't have fancy equipment either. They cobbled together whatever they had, from kites to wood splinters. Here are 5 incredible heroes of do-it-yourself science. Number 1. Robert Koch. When Dr. Robert Koch was in his late 20s, his wife gifted him his first microscope. Little did she know that he would use it to become world famous as a microbe hunter. Koch had been trained as a doctor, but was stationed in a relatively isolated and poor area in what is now Poland. In addition to his work, he began experimenting in his spare time, using his microscope to investigate disease. By placing different kinds of tissue under a microscope, he noticed something strange. Animals that died of anthrax consistently showed rod-shaped organisms in their blood, organisms that were absent in healthy animals. At the time, scientists were still debating whether germs caused disease or were just a byproduct of it. Koch suspected these organisms were the cause, but suspicion wasn't enough. He needed proof. To test this, he had to transfer the bacteria from infected animals to healthy ones, without contaminating the sample. Lacking proper lab tools and even spare syringes, which is pretty unfortunate for a doctor, he improvised with wood splinters. He sterilized them by boiling, dipped them into infected blood, and inserted them into the backsides of healthy rats. The result? The animals developed anthrax. Then he repeated the process again and again, each time producing the same disease. He even developed a method to grow the bacteria outside the body using gelatin, allowing him to isolate it completely. This wasn't just an experiment, it was one of the first rigorous demonstrations that a specific microorganism could cause a specific disease. Koch hadn't just studied anthrax, he helped prove germ theory, a breakthrough that would go on to save billions of lives. Number 2. Antony van Leeuwenhoek. Not all pioneers of science were trained doctors. Some were shopkeepers. Antony van Leeuwenhoek was born in Holland in 1632, trained as a cloth merchant, and opened his own shop in his 20s. His original goal was simple: to examine the quality of fabric more closely. But the lenses available to him weren't good enough, so he made his own. Through trial and error, Leeuwenhoek taught himself to grind glass and build his own microscopes. His creations became more powerful than anything else available at the time. And then, he started looking at everything. Water, plaque, blood, basically whatever he could get his hands on. But the moment that changed history really came when he examined water from a canal. He saw something no human had ever seen before. Countless tiny moving organisms. An entire hidden world. Leeuwenhoek carefully documented what he saw and shared his findings with scientific societies across Europe. He had no formal scientific training, no lab, and no institution behind him. But through curiosity and persistence, he effectively became the founder of microbiology, revealing a microscopic universe that had existed unseen for all of human history. Pretty impressive for a cloth merchant. Number 3. Ben Franklin's kite. By the mid-1700s, scientists had begun to understand how to generate and store electricity. But an important question remained. Was lightning the same phenomenon as static electricity, or something entirely different? Benjamin Franklin believed they were the same. The challenge was proving it. At the time, electricity could be stored using a device called a Leyden jar, essentially an early capacitor that could hold and release electrical charge. Franklin reasoned that if lightning was electrical, it should be possible to draw charge from a storm and store it in one of those jars. So he devised an experiment. A kite, flown into a storm. According to accounts, Franklin flew a kite with a metal key attached to the string, connected to a Leyden jar. Electrical charge built up and was stored in the Leyden jar. When he brought his knuckle close to the key, a spark jumped. That spark demonstrated that the energy in a storm behaved the same way as electricity generated in the lab. Importantly, the kite was not struck by lightning. That would have been fatal. Even so, this was extremely dangerous. A Russian scientist attempting a similar experiment was killed just a year later. Number 4. Hans Christian Ørsted. Electromagnetism at home. In 1820, during a lecture demonstration, Danish scientist Hans Christian Ørsted noticed something strange. As he passed an electric current through a wire, a nearby compass needle deflected, moving away from magnetic north. The effect was subtle, so subtle that his audience didn't even notice, but Ørsted did. At the time, electricity and magnetism were thought to be completely separate phenomena, so he began experimenting. At his home, he found that reversing the current reversed the direction of the needle. He tested different orientations, different materials, different setups, and the effect remained consistent. Even placing wood or glass between the wire and the compass didn't block it. Something invisible was linking electricity and magnetism. This discovery would eventually lead to one of the most powerful unifications in physics, culminating in Maxwell's equations, which describe electromagnetism as a single force, all from a simple setup and a moment of curiosity. Number 5. Gregor Mendel. The Augustinian monk Gregor Mendel is now known as the father of genetics. But his groundbreaking work didn't happen in a lab. It happened in a garden. Born in 1822 to a farming family, Mendel had a strong background in math and science, but spent much of his life in a monastery. In the mid-1800s, he began experimenting with pea plants, trying to understand how traits were passed from one generation to the next. He meticulously bred plants over multiple generations, tracking traits like color and shape. He then noticed something remarkable. The results weren't random, they followed patterns. When he crossed plants, about 3/4 of the offspring showed one trait, while 1/4 showed another, a consistent ratio that revealed an underlying structure. Mendel realized that inheritance worked through discrete units, what we now call genes, passed down in predictable ways. What makes this even more impressive is how he did it. No lab, no advanced equipment, just a garden, a notebook, and thousands of carefully counted plants. When he published his findings in 1866, almost no one noticed. It would take over 30 years for the scientific world to realize what he had discovered. A quiet monk had cracked the code of heredity. Thanks for watching.